Joining me tonight is Joe Sestak, retired Navy admiral who worked in intelligence and former congressman from Pennsylvania. Congressman, good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be with you,
Dick
Ed.
Cheney, you bet. Mr. Cheney, very critical of the report, but then he admits he didn't read it. Does that surprise you, and how accurate is what he's saying, in your opinion?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I think Vice President Cheney had already established what his position would be. Ever since we went into Iraq, that tragic misadventure, that and the means we used to extract intelligence from terrorists that we gathered around the world, he just wants to justify. I think he's wrong. If he's wrong, if for no other reason, Ed, that it exposes our military members overseas to torture. They might be liable to it today, but this now permits others to say, you did it. What do you mean we can't? And that's one of the real tragedies about this.
Cheney says that Bush was not only aware of the program, but he approved it before it went forward. What's your reaction to that?
Well, if President Bush did not know about it, I think that says a lot on its own. I mean, he's captain of the ship. He should know what's happening. But that said, I think the real effort here by the Vice President is to try just to cement the entire Bush administration's legacy as a whole, that everybody was responsible for it. But, you know, I'm not going to judge anything on my opinion about what Vice President Cheney has to say.
Okay. Well, how accurate is this? One of the claims is that no one involved in the enhanced interrogation programs were interviewed by the Senate. What does that mean as you see it?
Well, here's what I think. I think this report by the Senate committee is a good report, but it's far from a perfect report, Ed. I think they should have, in a perfect world, interviewed individuals as well as looked at the documents. But here's what I think it says the most of. This is hindsight. It is not oversight. And that's what this Intelligence Committee should have been doing as this was going on. If anything this report speaks to is where was the oversight by Congress in this effort when it was happening, as well as other efforts. I can remember being on the Armed Services Committee in Congress, and for 4 years while I was on it and Iraq was happening, there was not one hearing on the war in Iraq. What's that saying about oversight by Congress?
Well, it seems to me that the Bush administration had the Justice Department right where they wanted them, had the lawyers saying exactly what they wanted to say, had people on the Intel Committee that clearly weren't curious enough and were believing everything that was said by the CIA, and these guys were given a free rein. Cheney is... Go ahead.
No, I think you made that next to last point was an excellent one. What I found at times that those Congress members, those senators that are on certain committees, be it transportation, be it intelligence, be it armed services, are co-opted by those professionals, so to speak, within the agencies. They're great. They're heroes. But at the same time, they've got their programs to protect and move forward. And I think at times, particularly see how many Congress members then go to lobby, so to speak, then you have to understand that maybe the oversight is also part of our representatives being co-opted by those within agencies.
What do you, as a former military man and an expert and an admiral, what's your reaction when you hear Dick Cheney come out and say, when you know torture is wrong, he denies it, but then he also plays on the emotions of the American people, say, well, they killed 3,000 Americans, calls them bastards, and then we had to get them, we had to do whatever we had to do, and oh, by the way, we protected the country and didn't get hit again. I think the point in all of this is, all right, that's true, we were mad, we wanted to get justice, but the fact is now we have to live with the way the arena was set up. And what this is going to do to our personnel worldwide right now, ISA is cutting people's heads off. I mean, this gets elevated, and where does it end, Admiral?
Ed, what you most want whenever a crisis happens in the military is a cool head. Someone who can rise up above the emotions, because usually the first word in any conflict is wrong. That comes back. And you need someone who can think through the long-term implications. Look, the reason so many of our judge advocate corps in the military, our lawyers, oppose the use of torture was for exactly the reasons you said. It opens us up to it even more in the future. I am grateful, though, that transparency has finally come about too long down the road. But I think that anything our government does, as long as it doesn't harm our national security, should be open to sunlight so that we can take the lessons from it and say, that's not who we are. We're better than that.
I remember at the time, Senator Joe Biden at the time talking about how we have to protect our military personnel around the world, and we don't torture because we don't want our people tortured. Now look where we are. I also remember in 2006 when Nancy Pelosi gavel and the Democrats took over the House, the left in this country was adamant about Bush being impeached. And I just wonder if the Democrats tonight, when they read this report, if they knew back then what they know right now, would they be in favor of impeaching Bush and Cheney and bringing them up on war crimes? Because they're all saying that this is such a tight report and it's very accurate, footnoted by 38,000 notes. Admiral Joe Sestak, great to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, a